really didn't think I'd be making a video on this as soon as this, but the last three games that this team has had, it's completely warranted right now. The team is not only old, and they're not only slow, but the Pens have just checked out for the season. And we're now entering a very dark time, if you're a Pens fan. A feeling that I haven't felt as a Pens fan in about 20 years. And if you're an older Pens fan, if you saw the days of Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr, if you were around to experience the awful 80s and the times that the Pens were bankrupt in the 70s and the 2000s, well, I hate to say it, but you're about to have that feeling once again. This is the first time that I can say I'm about to feel the full effect of it, because when I first became a Pens fan, the Pens were wrapping up a long, painful rebuild with the Rico Fata days, an inept front office, and a wasted final years of Mario Lemieux. And at least we got Sidney Crosby out of that, and the rest is history. I don't even know what the Pens are going to get from this. Because this right here, a trade right here like this, can set a franchise back years. And I think that's exactly what Kyle Dubas has done. What's going on, everybody? I am Mac, back with another video. As always, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, follow on Instagram, link down in the box below. The last three games for the Pens since Jake Guentzel, your best goal scorer over the past couple of seasons, was traded to the Carolina Hurricanes. You know, a Stanley Cup contender, one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. We trade him at the deadline, and what do we get out of it? We get this guy, Michael Bunting, who has done nothing for the Pens since wearing the uniform for the Pens, who's a whole year younger than Jake Guentzel, who's in the first year of a 3-year, $1.5 million contract, and he only has half as many goals as Jake Guentzel. And you get prospects, none of which rank among the top 4 in Carolina's farm. And you get a second-round pick. Well, it's a first-round pick, Mac. You know, Carolina, they're more than capable. Let me tell you, this is not a first-round pick that the Pens got. It's a conditional pick. And the only way that it's going to be a first-round pick is if the Carolina Hurricanes go to the Stanley Cup, which they have a good chance at doing because they're a solid team. But that's the only way the Pens are getting a first-rounder out of this. This trade was terrible. This trade was awful. Nowhere to go. Nothing to gain from it, pretty much. As you see other teams in the NHL, like Anaheim and even Philadelphia, they all got first-round picks for their trades. And what do Pens fans have to do with shipping off Jake Guentzel to not only a division rival, but to a qualified playoff contender? This is all we got for that. Please let Carolina go to the Stanley Cup. That's what we got. And a guy who's done nothing for the Pens since putting on the skates. Now, I wanted to wait a little bit because I wanted to get my thoughts in order. I wanted to be more rational about this. So I didn't come on here right away and make the video. But these past 3 games, I think it's warranted. 6-0, they get trounced by the Washington Capitals the night of the trade. 5-1 yesterday at the hands of the Boston Bruins. and then you get shut out at home again to Edmonton 4-0. So if you're keeping track of all that, in 3 games, the Pens have been outscored by a combined 15-1. 15-1 in the past 3 games. On average, you lose a game about 5-0. And you're telling me that everything's going to be A-okay because it's just the first year that Kyle Dubas is the GM for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and he's only been with the Pens since August or July of last year. He's only 8 months in the GM, You got to give him a chance, Mac. Besides adding Lars Eller and Alex Nedeljkovic, what has he done to make the Pens better? Now, I knew coming into the season the Pens had issues, and I knew the Pens weren't exactly a great team, but this was still a team that could make noise in the Eastern Conference. And pretty much all he did aside from that was bring in Erik Karlsson, who's 1,000,000 years old, to make an already old team even older. What's he done? He has done nothing to help out this farm. He has done nothing to help out the salary cap. And now you just shipped off one of your best players, your best goal scorer, I would say, to a team that may or may not even make the Stanley Cup for a pick that's going to come pretty much in the 50s. What has he done? Hard to find it, isn't it? And I know that people are going to come on here and say, well, it was a rental. Here's the thing about it. You don't trade Jake Guentzel as a rental. You sign him if that's the case. Jake did not want to leave Pittsburgh. Jake wanted to stay in Pittsburgh. It was blatantly obvious. After all, it was $6 million for him this year. And when Jeff Carter finally retires, his money goes to Jake Guentzel, and what do you know? The most useless part of this team is gone for good, while Jake Guentzel continues to stay, and you're in the process of moving other players around, which can free up a little bit more cap space, and you can maybe get back on par to where you were. In short, you want the simple truth, Pens fans? The Pens got hosed. You do not make a trade like that. If you are going to ship off your big 3 and you want to just hit the reset button, fine. But you don't get hosed off of that. It's one thing to go through a rebuild. It's another thing to get nothing in return for prospects. It's another thing when you're not helping out the farm. And you have to rely on Mike Sullivan's outdated coaching style and aging Sidney Crosby, who, let's face facts, guys, 37 years old, ain't exactly young. In NHL sense, he's not young. Evgeny Malkin is not young. Chris Letang is not young. This is exactly what the Pens went through in the 80s, and this is exactly what they went through in the early to mid 2000s in Mario Lemieux's final years as a Pen. And like I said at the beginning, I feel like I'm about to enter my worst phase of being a Pens fan, and I've been a Pens fan for 20 years. Granted, it was a fun ride. It was a great ride. It was one of the best rides I've ever had in my life as a sports fan. I'm blessed to have seen this franchise win 3 Stanley Cups and go to 4 of them, win back-to-back Stanley Cups, cement themselves as a dynasty. I'm blessed to have seen Sidney Crosby be a top 5 NHL player of all time, in my honest opinion. Evgeny Malkin, phenomenal, sensational player. I'm blessed to have seen all the playoff success. I'm blessed to have seen everything. But it's clear now that this dynasty and this championship window has slammed shut. And it's all because of this trade. This trade right here was the final nail in the coffin as to how this front office and how Mario, quite frankly, sees the direction of this team going. When is the rebuild going to be over with? I don't know. How long is it going to take for the Pens to build themselves up into being a quality team again? I don't know. But a trade like this is franchise killing. Remember back in the day where we got Ron Francis from the Hartford Whalers and they ended up moving to Carolina to become the Hurricanes? Well, this is a little bit of a karma trip right here for us. The Hurricanes just did to the Pens what we did to the Whalers when we got Ron Francis. Now, this doesn't mean the Pens are going to move out of Pittsburgh. I don't think that's going to happen because, let's face it, Mario Lemieux is going to do everything in his power to keep the Pens here, and he's a hockey guy, and he loves the franchise, so I have no doubt that the Pens aren't going to move like they should have to Kansas City. But it's just going to be a rough time being a Pens fan for, I would say, at least the next 5 years. All that success has to come back at you and slap you in the face. And this is exactly what we're going through right now. This was a terrible trade. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It was an awful trade. And the Pens looked like a team that just does not belong in the NHL right now. When you drop games 6-0, 5-1, and 4-0. You lose an average of 15. You lose a combined 15-1 in 3 games. And you get out and you lose a game on average like 5-0 or 5-1. This team is just not competitive anymore. And I said at the very beginning of the season that if the Pens fail to win a playoff series this year, I'm going to start calling for Sully's head. I may as well just start doing it now. If you're talking about a rebuild, you're talking about regutting the entire thing. Let Sid and Malkin finish up their careers here. If not, trade them away for valuable prospects, something you can actually get a great return from. Fire Sullivan, get rid of everything, flush it down the Komoot into the Allegheny River, and reset. That's what I'm talking about as far as a rebuild goes. And take your chances in the lottery and hope that you can get good draft capital. Because that's what it takes to be a rebuild. This team is... You cannot look me in the eye and tell me that this team is going to be competitive. You just can't. Anyway, that's all I got for this video. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. I am Mac, checking on out for the day. Have a good one, everybody.